Hey guys, welcome back to RoboTalk. I'm Shreyas, your host, and there's Pranav, my co-host, and our guest today, Ralph. So this is a show where we talk about people who are actually building in hardware and showing what it really takes. Today, the guest, it's a little stranger because last time we had someone who was building physical things. Today, our guest isn't building only machines. He's kind of teaching them how to think. So robots can walk into buildings they've never seen, work out what's going on and do real problem solvings, essentially like how humans can do problem solving. And so he's doing it in office towers and malls across Southeast Asia where nothing stays where you left it, right? So Raphael Yee runs Griffin Labs. Ralph, welcome to RoboTalk.
Hi, good to be here. Yeah, thanks for having me.
No worries. So I could maybe give a quick word of how we had Ralph over here because it's a bit different from the last founder that we had here. So we can't claim that, we know him very well. But what we do know is Griffin Labs. Because, me and Pranav are students at SUTD. You were a student of SUTD. We've very much heard the name. It's a company where, people bring up when they talk about work ethic, when they talk about what they really learn and when they go into interns. And, they talk about how when they come out of Griffin Labs, how much they've learned. So the reputation gets, you hear it around in SUTD and, that's when we reached out and like, hey, we would love to have you. You very kindly obliged. Thank you very much for that.
It's good to hear good things. The worst is if we had like interns going and then they're like, oh, it's a bad place.
Absolutely the opposite. So Ralph, maybe you can give the people, a quick version of who you are. What is Griffin Labs? What do you guys actually build? And how you ended up in the robotic space in the first place.
Yeah. Thanks guys for having me. My name is Raph. So I'm the director of Griffin Labs. I've been running Griffin Labs for about a year now. Just a short introduction. Griffin Labs is an embodied AI subsidiary of LionsBot International. So LionsBot, very successful robotics company based in Singapore. 6,000 robots plus are deployed worldwide in Europe, in the US, in Asia, right? And Griffin Labs is basically doing all the embodied AI work, in terms of like VLAs, semi-humanoids, AI research, autonomy, we really do all that AI work as part of the LionsBot organization. And I'm very lucky to be able to actually be a part of it and run that. So a bit of an introduction from me. I was from SUTD, so I'm from the class of 2024. And right out of the gate, like I graduated with a degree in computer science and I started my own company. So it was myself as well as two of my schoolmates. We decided to start an AI company. We were running a generative AI company. This was back before ChatGPT had image functions. We were actually training the diffusion models to generate images of like homes, a bunch of real estate agencies in Singapore. So we've been working in AI for about 2 years now. And then about 1.5 years in, I actually got to know of Dylan, the CEO of LionsBot, and he was like, hey, Raph, like LionsBot wants to start an embodied AI arm. Like we want to look at embodied AI and take it seriously, right? Because that's the future. And then he's like, do you want to join us? Do you want to do this? And I was like, okay, sounds interesting. So I took my team, like Alex and Bryce, and I was like, okay, we're going to get into robotics. And back then we didn't know how hard it was, like doing robotics and hardware. And we were like, yeah, we've always done software, done AI, it should be easy, right? Man, it's been a really tough year, but yeah, very glad to be in the robotics space, working at the frontier. I believe in Singapore, we are one of the rare companies actually working on frontier stuff. It's like everything, and I will say full stack as well. So we have a Mac team. Okay, so we do hardware, we build everything ourselves. We have an autonomy team. So we do the autonomy software part that makes the robot like work, like move around, slam, that kind of thing. We have an AI team that does like research. So we collect data, we train AI models, and then GPUs, and then we roll them out. Yeah. And a software team. So the software builds like fleet management, that sort of thing, ties everything together. So we do everything full stack. I think we are probably the only company in Singapore that's doing embodied AI full stack.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Great. Actually, you said like you started your company just out of college.
Yeah.
Like, so why didn't you get a job first? You didn't think you need to get some work experience or something?
Yeah.
Like, why start a company?
Yeah. So I think, this story starts very long ago, like 10 years ago in 2016. So in 2016, I was an art student. So I didn't do science, I didn't do math, nothing. I was an art student. I was a film student. I managed to intern at a small company then named Carousel. So everybody probably knows Carousel because they use Carousel, like secondhand marketplace, unicorn. But when I joined Carousel, it was pre-Series A and it was a small startup, right? And I joined as an intern. right? A community intern. I was just doing like marketing stuff, right? And then I looked around me, I was like, wow, everybody's doing engineering. And you could code and build stuff and like you could build stuff, right? And I thought it was really cool. So I got to learn to code at Carousel. I told the co-founders, Lucas, I was like, hey, can I do this? Can I be an engineer? Like, will you teach me, right? And they were like, okay, sure. So I spent basically most of 7-8 years like as an intern in Carousel. So I was interning for very long, like before NS, through national service,
7 to 8
during
years.
uni. Yeah,
Whoa.
I was just always there, and I was shipping features. And I was very lucky to have the opportunity to see Carousel grow, from a small company, Series A, to a unicorn, right? And I was writing software at all these levels of scale, and very, very lucky that they gave me the opportunity for that. And my life changed because of that, right? And so, my last final year in 2024, in school, right, I was talking to one of my friends who became my engineering manager actually, and I was like, hey. He was like, you want to join full-time? If you join, right, we'll just bump you up to, I don't know, SE2. But I told myself, like, maybe I'm thinking, like, I want to start my own company. I want to do my own startup. That's my dream. I don't want to keep, like, building someone else's dream. So in the start of 2024, I was like, okay, I'm going to quit. So I ended my Carousel journey there. I messaged everybody. I said thank you to Surey and the founders and my friends at Carousel. I was like, okay, look, I've met everybody I've known here, but it's time for me to do my own thing. That's how and then like screw that, like you graduate and then just start your own company, Yeah, and
So
that was the best decision I made. Yeah,
That's amazing.
So you had the idea from before. You just like you thought you had to start a company, so you went and searched for that idea.
Yeah, it's a good question. Actually, throughout my uni days, like I was always toying with different business ideas. So me and my co-founder Bryce, who's actually still with us now today, we were always like trying to build. And this was before the era of vibe coding, by the way. We were always like building new products and building new products and trying to get revenue. We, together with another startup, Stickum, we were like, I think we spent like 5 years in the entrepreneurship center in SUTD. So we were always in the incubation space and we always sat next to each other. So we always knew each other. And we were just like, well, they were running Stickum. Like we were always like trying different things, We had like a mental health app. We were doing places. We were doing different stuff. So we were always toying and tinkering. And then when it came to graduation, we were like, just plunge into something. And at that point of time, image models weren't out, generally in Gemini or ChatGPT or nothing. There weren't any image models. It was just text, right? ChatGPT was just text. So we thought, hey, if we look at the real estate space, right, it's so image driven. Like when you look for a place to rent or buy, like could we train models to beautify them or to clean up the space? Yeah. So that was how we got into AI.
Yeah. Okay.
Wow.
Great.
That's actually amazing. And did you have a feeling of doubt actually? Because I feel like what is really taught to you in school, at least even in SUTD, is, hey, you work all the way and then, you go get a job. And then, if it doesn't work, if you don't get one, you apply for another, etc. It's the sort of path that we've been told ever since we were kids, right? I think for most people. But for you, coming out, starting a company by yourself, was there a moment of doubt? Was there a moment of like, hey, if this goes wrong, what could happen? What would it look like? Did you really think about the
That
word
taking
failing?
a big risk.
Yeah, the big risk that's out there. Was that really something that went through, or was it just like all in?
Look, if anybody ever tells you they don't feel a shred of doubt, like I would just take that with a pinch of salt, right? I think the thing with good founders and founders that stick it through is that you go past, you go beyond that phase of doubt. So like, I definitely like doubted myself, I tell my friends, my partner, everybody like, oh, can I do this, But I think in that moment is when you build that sense of resilience, you build that sense of like confidence as well. And the more you sort of go through doubt, you sort of like shut it at the door and you say, okay, I'm going to do it. Like that's when you go beyond, And I think that's a muscle that you exercise. Yeah. I think as a first time founder, the first time I ever made like our first like 5K MRR back in year 1 or year 2, we were like, oh, how do we get this to like 10K? How do we get this to like 20K? Right. And you doubt
always
yourself.
about the next step.
You're right. But if you let that doubt stop you from taking the next step, you will never take the next step. And then your doubts are like justified. It's true, right? So I think that's the kind of mindset you need. Yeah.
So bringing it to the fact that you brought up when you first made, 5K MRR, I kind of had a question. When was the first time that, you said you've been in, entrepreneurship for a while, trying different things, tinkering, toying around. When is the first time that a business made you money? And what did that really teach you?
Yeah. So I think the first time the business ever made me money was actually before uni. So during national service, I actually owned a couple of social media pages, like meme pages. And during national service, like we were probably the biggest meme page in Singapore.
No way.
Yeah. Yeah. We have like, at our peak, we were, like 80 to 100K followers, and we had a few pages. And so that was a good business, right? Like brands would pay you like maybe like 5-6K a post or something. And then all you're doing is you're on MRT, you create a meme, and then that's it. It was great. Like you just make a meme in like a minute, and then you charge like 5-6K per post. And that was the first time something ever made money, I think, for me. Yeah. And hit that level of like attention and scale, right? In terms of distribution, in terms of like profit margins. Yeah.
That's amazing. Because I feel like the first step for any startup, for any business, is the biggest question, I think, for a lot of people why they build also is, hey, when am I going to get my first check? When am I going to get the first revenue in? What does it really take to get that first check in?
Yeah, and I actually think that's a really important thing to have. My experience is kind of the opposite, actually. I think a lot of founders focus on a product, and they focus a lot on just building a product in the way that they think the product should be.
Yeah.
But they don't focus... technical founders rarely think about the business aspect of it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe they're just not tuned to it, or they don't think about it. They're just like, but these days, I think with AI, vibe code, like the cost of putting utility out into the world is very, very low, right? So really the true mode is the business, and you have to think about the business, right? Is the market big enough? Is it worth your time? Are people going to buy it? And I think, but nowadays, I think people are starting to think about that. Like GTM is a very important part of startups
any
now.
business.
Yeah, in 2017, like people were just thinking like, oh, if I build something, people will come, right? If I build something, people will love. And I think that's still kind of true, but these days it's a bit more saturated. So I think you got to think a bit. Yeah.
So Ralph, the way we're going to go about this conversation is we have segments. I mean, that's how we actually structure RoboTalk. And so we start off, there's different segments. Me and Pranav will be switching. The first one, which we actually want to tap into, is, the reputation and your unlikely path here. Like the way you said, you started in film, and then you were doing CS, you're doing a bunch of startups, and then, your carousel journey, and then your startup journey, and then all the way LionsBot, and then finally, Griffin Labs. As mentioned, Griffin Labs is really heard around SCTD a lot for their work ethic, for, these interns being able to learn like a frightening amount of information. I've seen, my very close friend, she actually interned in Griffin Labs. And, for example, a bunch of skills she was mentioning, be it CADing, be it electronics. She was like, hey, my before and after experience is drastic. In those 3.5 months, I mean, it's just been amazing. So, did you get on purpose? Did it just happen? Like, does Griffin Labs, show people, interns that other places really don't?
Yeah. I think, first of all, like Griffin Labs run really lean. So for the amount of work we do, like for the better part of last year, we had less than 10 people, right?
Oh, wow.
Like we had for the bulk of last year, we had maybe 5 full-timers, and then we had, 8 or so interns come and go. So it was a very small amount of people to build everything from hardware all the way to AI. So everybody is kind of loaded quite a bit. And, we're always working really hard and doing a lot of things and trying to... Yeah, so I think as part of that process, you learn a lot, right? That saturation, that loading is very important to saturate yourself with knowledge and saturate yourself with... I mean, the best way of learning is to do. That's what I think. That's what I believe, right? And
100%.
The more you do, the more you learn, and that cycle, it's a very powerful, vicious cycle, right? So at Griffin Labs, right, you can expect that you'd be loaded quite high, right? But that's it, right? You are loaded with tasks and work that are not just like busy work. Some people, I think they're like, oh, they throw you like something that's like not important, and it's kind of like just look at it, but nothing comes out of it. No. We are building actual robots that have to go to production, that actually have to work. So you have to learn to do things that make it work, And I think that's the real, source, right? That's the real thing that you're getting out of it. So for us as a company, like whenever interns come in, like we always focus also on their learning. So we always think like, okay, like, and how can they best learn? And everybody gets a seat at the table. I don't think we really differentiate between a full-timer and an intern. Of course, we understand that interns come with a certain lack of experience that we are here to give you and also help you out, help you through. But at the same time, we treat like opinions from interns as almost as seriously as opinions from our full-timers. And it just shows the kind of caliber of the interns that come through that we've been able to trust, but also the kind of agency that we give them that allows them to develop that level of work that
Mm-hmm.
justifies that agency. Yeah.
Okay.
That's awesome. And one thing, when I was reading your LinkedIn, it said you're a self-taught software engineer who loves to take everything personally. What does take everything personally look like? Let's say when your robot or your stack just breaks at 2 a.m. What does that mean?
Yeah, I mean, so when I say I take things personally, I think it's just the kind of seriousness that I take to whatever I do, right?
Mm-hmm.
If that means showing up for something, showing up for someone, showing up for my team, problem solving, right? So you gave me an example, something breaks at 2 a.m., right? Of course, if I were awake, if you're awake at 2 a.m., what would you do? Like, if you're sleeping, I don't know, like, maybe you're so sixth sense, you wake up. Okay, but yeah, so it means that when things break, like there are nights where I'm coding, right? And I'm training models. Okay, models, like when we train models, like AI models, right? They run overnight because they take a while, right?
Absolutely.
And I'm constantly monitoring, right? And if something breaks, right, it's going to cost us money if we just leave it to the next morning, right? And so I'm like, okay, I got to get it fixed. I got to push it out really quickly. And I think everybody in Griffin Labs takes a very certain like sort of craftsman, personal sort of aspect to their work, conscientiousness, that attention to details, and what it means to not deliver. Everybody kind of takes personally, which I'm very, very, very grateful for. And I don't expect it of everybody because I think that people have different relationships with the work that they do. Doesn't mean that they're bad, but for myself, right, I cannot stand when I deliver something that is not up to expectations. I cannot stand it when I don't over-deliver either. I need my bases checked. I need to make sure that everything I'm doing makes sense for me and makes sense for the person above and beyond like a normal standard. And that's the kind of attention I take to everything that I do.
So beating the expectation.
You have to beat the expectations, right?
That's the limit. Yeah.
Yeah, if you want to make a sale, if you want to make money, like you have to beat your customers' expectations, right?
Absolutely.
Like no one's gonna make a sale if you're under delivering, So I think that sort of mindset of like, okay, I need to, and the thing is, you don't need to always beat expectations by a huge margin, right? Because sometimes there is a physical limit to things, right? And engineering as well. But maybe if like, you're expecting XYZ, right? Maybe you can just do a small like +1, +2, just a plus, just a bit, right? That's enough as a way to exercise that muscle of like over delivering. The worst thing you want is like you oversell and then you under deliver, right? That's the worst case scenario, right? So to me, the only scenario is you're always over delivering.
And is that something you suggest to startups, or even while you were working on many of your venture businesses? Was it something like, hey, anything that I do, I'm going to over deliver to my customers? Is that something that you preach?
Yeah, I think for us, that's what we always aspire to do, which means sometimes things are not as scalable as they are off the bat, right? Because people will be like, oh, can you do this? Can you fix this? And, in our heads, we're like, it's not part of the product, right? But maybe because we want to over deliver, we have that sort of mindset of like taking it personally, right? Like if I were them, how would I feel? And if I feel that way, then okay, I should take this particular problem very, very personally. It should affect you on a personal level, right? It hurts me when I deliver something and it doesn't work. It hurts me like personally, and it does something to me that makes me want to make it work and make it better. I think that's kind of the mindset. Yeah.
Okay, that's amazing. And I wanted to kind of touch back into, your path back, right? You were saying it was, film, consumer software at Carousel, and then LionsBot, and then embodied-AI. Is there a real through line, or was there like, was it just like just a jump into a new kind of experience from the last? What was it like?
Yeah. Okay. So I have a very different journey. Like I grew up acting. So I went to art school. I was an actor. I was trained as a stage actor. So I was doing theater. Wow. I used to go for acting gigs. Okay. I was even on Netflix. So I was always an art student, right? When I was a kid, like growing up. And then, I got into computer science. I got into coding, right? So is there a through line? Maybe from that domain perspective?
Yeah.
No. But I think work ethic that I learned as an artist, right? Helped me transition. Okay. Why?
Okay.
As an art student, as an actor, right? You're always rehearsing. You have to put the time into rehearsing because you need to memorize a script. You have a script in front of you and you need to deliver it in front of an audience. So you need to rehearse. You're doing it day and night. So we used to start school at like 8. I went to SOTA. So we start school at 8. We end school at maybe like 3 p.m. And then from 3 p.m. until like maybe 8 or 9 p.m., we have like rehearsals. So it's like a whole day thing, right? Like every day. And you're in high school. You're like 13. We did it from the age of 13 to the age of like 18, right? And you are constantly in this like you're studying academics, and then you have like like rehearsals, art, performance, that kind of thing. And then on the weekends, I'm going for like auditions. I'm putting myself out there. I'm going for auditions, casting calls, that kind of thing. So that sort of like all-consuming like work ethic, right? The fact that you need to show up every single time and deliver, right, was kind of ingrained in me. And it has made it easier, right? Because you're kind of doing the same thing in engineering or when you're doing a startup.
Yeah.
You have to show up every single day. And then you have to deliver every single day. And every time you do something, you need to you need to reflect about it and you need to think about it, right? It's kind of like, as an actor, you're thinking about, how do you step into the shoes of this character that you're trying to embody, right?
Yeah.
As a salesperson, you're thinking of how you're stepping in the shoes of your customer. As an engineer, you're stepping into the shoes of your consumer, the person using your product, right? So you're always in this state of like reflecting and then also consistently showing up. So in terms of the through line, I think that's the best through line, right? Like I realized that my work has changed, but the way I've done my work has always been a thing. And as a kid until now, like I've learned so much about this process, and that would be the through line, I would say.
So being consistent, showing up, putting in the effort.
Yeah. And you could do it through sports, right? You could do it through sports as well. Like you grow up like, maybe you're a competitive soccer player, right? You're training, you're showing up for training every day. You know, it's the same thing, right? You want a certain element of you want to be amazing. You want to be like exceptional. You want to be exceptional in your craft. Yeah, this is what you got to do, no matter what domain you're in.
Absolutely. I think that's a very good analogy. And I think that's kind of the way, a lot of people, shift between different experiences in their life to new journeys. But I think some parts of it just stay the same, at least in terms of work ethic, reputation, etc.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to let Pranav take it on from here, So Pranav now is going to be moving on to a segment about, so coming back now, right, Griffin's, the bet is why embodied AI, So this is going to be the segment that he's going to be going about. So Pranav, take it away.
Okay. So my first question is like, we are building Griffin Labs and in which we are working on facilities management, right? Cleaning, maintenance, security. On a slide that this sounds dull next to humanoids doing backflips. What do you think? And why is it the right hard problem to pick?
Yeah. So first of all, facilities management is a huge industry, right? Like you said, cleaning, maintenance, security, inspection, that kind of thing. Like that covers like a lot of ground, right? And it's a huge market with a lot of use cases, right? So the question is like, why this? Well, there's a simple answer and a longer answer. Okay. The short answer is, well, we are part of LionsBot as an organization. So LionsBot is a cleaning company in the facilities management space. So naturally, we will gravitate towards where our GTM and our distribution gives us an advantage, for sure, right? But that's it. Why cleaning, right? And when you think about any industry, there are very few industries that you see will always be a thing and will be a thing until the end of time, right? And it's huge, okay? Think about it. Wherever a human walks needs to be cleaned. Wherever. So just because you walk through a park and you see like leaves on the floor and you're like, oh, maybe someone should clean this, right? Like people do clean it, right? You walk from one building to another building, like people clean it. You walk in a building, people clean that building. Like wherever a human touches, it is cleaned. Your market is huge. Now, what's the problem? None of you want to be cleaners. Nobody wants to be cleaners, right? Do you want to be a cleaner? I don't think you want to be a cleaner. No, you want to be a cleaner? No. And it's not because like cleaning is not important. Cleaning is so important, right? You wouldn't want to walk around in like a filthy environment, right? The problem is that cleaning is a physical task. It is a very, very physical task. Okay?
Absolutely.
Cleaning, construction, dirty and dull. Like they're all kind of like the same type of work, right? Where you're out there in the field, right? It's hot. You have to bend down to scrub a toilet bowl, You have to clear excrement. You have to pick up for after other people. It's for lack of a better word, it's a shit job, right? So, when you think about that kind of space, you realize that, okay, 1, humans need it. 2, it's a huge need. 3, nobody wants to do it. Perfect for robots, right? Now, everybody talks about robots are going to replace us. Robots are going to take away our jobs. Let me tell you, there are not enough cleaners. So it's not even about replacing. It's not about replacing, right? It's just about meeting the demand where the demand is.
Yes.
Right? The supply cannot catch up. And that's perfect for robotics. It's an immediate deployment case. It's a justification for why we should be here and be in the room, right? And why we should be continuing to develop the technology to be in the room.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Okay. Amazing. So you said that this needs embodied AI, not just a better program machine. Like, Why can't you just write a rule for every situation for a toilet to cleaning the water or something?
Yeah, exactly, right? Like if I ask you today, okay, I like to, this is a really good question, right? And I think we take it for granted sometimes, but let me ask you this. What is trash? Very simple question. What is trash?
Whatever you don't need.
Whatever you don't need. Okay, whatever you don't need, right? So you didn't say like a can or like banana peel or tissue, right? It's just whatever you don't need, right? It could be anything. It could be an iPhone 15. It could be a Rolex watch. It could be something as meaningless as a piece of paper, right?
Yeah.
So the definition of trash is a semantic problem. It lives in the semantic space, right? It depends on something that is not physically obvious.
Yep.
Agreed?
Yep.
Now, the thing is with computer vision, like classical like programming, right? There's no idea of semantics, right? There's no way of understanding semantics. It's like geometry, right? Or like you teach a CNN how to detect like a banana peel. That's all it knows, right? So if it's a banana peel on the floor, it's like, okay, it's trash, right? Trash detection. What happens when, a piece of trash is maybe a piece of paper, right? You put it on the table. You think, I train a model to tell me that's trash. You pick it up, but it's important. Then how?
Yeah.
But a piece of paper on the floor, it's like, oh, it's trash because it's on the floor. No. I dropped it on the floor, right? But it's not trash. Don't throw it away. It's a very contextual thing, you see. It's a very contextual problem. Now, that's why it needs to move beyond classical programming. When you clean, the act of cleaning and the idea of cleaning, it's a very, very semantic task. You need AI for that, right? Just classical heuristics-based programming takes you so far. Ultimately, you want a robot that is intelligent enough to detect like a Rolex watch on the floor and say, hey, I should put this in lost and found, and not just put it in the incinerator, So I think that's a very clear example of why semantics matter. And because semantics matter, it needs to move beyond heuristics-based like coding or programming.
Yeah. Okay. Makes sense. Great analogy though.
Yeah.
So I wanted to say like you started this thing in Singapore, not in the US, where everything in physical AI is actually happening, where all the like real the thing is happening, and you're
outside
in Singapore.
The US, outside of Singapore.
Why?
Yeah.
So why Singapore?
Well, yeah. Okay, first of all, I think there is a core belief and conviction that we have very, very good talent here in Asia. And Singapore is, in my opinion, the center of like Southeast Asia, right? Everybody from, the countries around us want to come here, right? Because we offer maybe a really nice way of life. At the same time, we are also where you can find just very good talent and you want to be with the talent, right? So Singapore is a talent hub. Okay, great. I think you're right to say that the US is at the forefront, right? Talent in the US is definitely, a lot better, right? They're a lot more expensive as well. And the kind of research that they're doing in the US, right, is crazy. In fact, I would extend this argument as well. I would say the US has a monopoly on maybe like AI talent, like frontier research talent.
Yeah.
China has the monopoly on manufacturing. So nobody can beat
100%.
Nobody beats China on
100%.
hardware. But the thing is, it's also very expensive to operate in these areas, right? If you're going to the US, you better make sure, right, that you have a huge war chest. Because you're going up not against like people who are, running 7-figure budgets. You're going against people who will raise like billion-dollar rounds, $100 million like seed, right? So the reason why we are in Singapore, well, I mean, one reason is because obviously LionsBot is headquartered here. But the other reason is because we feel like there is space here to be what those AI companies are to the US here in Singapore, right? But in a more capital efficient manner. Right. If we were to go like pack up and say, hey, let's go to the Bay Area, we're gonna be like 1 in 100 other companies, well-funded companies, and too many, right? So this is our differentiation, our core differentiation, right? So then the last thing, I think it's a matter of perspective. Okay. Yeah. So I mean, investors, when we talk to them, right, they're always talking about like, oh, like, are you guys gonna be able to beat the big boys? Are you guys gonna be able to beat like all these US companies? I think my part of the conversation is always like, it's not about beating them. You don't have to, right? They sit very differently on that sort of supply chain, right? The AI models are going to be better. They're going to be training those AI models. Let the big dogs fight, right? We can focus on what traditionally Southeast Asian companies are very focused on, which is deployment. So being able to deploy, like, look, so many of these companies are raising like huge rounds, right? But are any of them deployed in the real world? No, they're not. Because they're focused on a totally different game. They're focused on model work, that kind of thing, right? But LionsBot has 6,000 robots, right? Deployed worldwide, right? We are focused on a different game. And I think that Southeast Asian like sort of mindset, that sort of like, let's make money, let's do the practical thing, let's do the pragmatic thing, changes the way you view like a company. And it's okay. I think they can all exist differently, but that's also one of the reasons why we are based here, right? We think, okay, we can do the deployment game. We can win the deployment game, and we can win the deployment game from Southeast Asia.
Okay.
That's awesome.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So I will just pass it to Shreyas for the next segment.
Yeah. So, I mentioned, here we also want the audience to take away something, right? Let's just say it's a person, it's a student studying in high school, in college, want to get into embodied AI. So let's teach them something, right? Let's teach them something about robots instead of just programming, instead of your casual coding. So let's start off with the elephant in the room, VLAs, vision language models, vision language action models, rather. What is it in plain simple words? How you would explain it to your, let's say you meet your 7-year-old cousin who you met at a wedding. How are you going to explain
7 years old? Wow, okay.
Oh, okay. Maybe 7 is too young. Let's say 12, 13
No, we
year
can try.
Okay, let's try.
We can try. Okay, so 7 years old cousin at a wedding. Hey, great to see you again. Like, you're so cute. Oh, what is that? VLA models? Yeah. Okay, let me try to explain it to you, okay? Just imagine, right? I want you to pick up a ball, okay? First, you got to see the ball. You see the ball, and you know it's a ball. You realize it's a ball. And after you realize it's a ball, you think, I have to reach out and pick up the ball. And you go and pick up the ball, okay? What you've done here is you have seen a ball, you've thought about how to reach the ball, and you've reached it. And you've picked it up, okay? So that's the 7-year-old answer, right? We are teaching AI models to do that. So we're teaching robots to do that. Let's go to the 12-year-old maybe. Yeah? So for the 12-year-old, I would say, think about the first time you picked up this ball. Maybe you can't remember, you were a kid or something. But you had to probably practice. So you reach out and you try to pick it up, but it slips or it falls. You realize it's not how you think it should be, right? The world is not how you think it should be. And you try again, and you try again, and you try again, right? And every single time you try, you are adjusting your approach. Learning something. You're thinking about it, right? Yeah. This is the VLA model training process, right? A VLA model or an AI model is just a child, right? Starting from some blank slate, right? Learning a task for the first time. Right. And in the same way you train a child, you have to train a VLA model, right? And when I say training, it means one, you need data, which means you need those examples of practice. Maybe you can even watch YouTube videos, right? As a 12, 13-year-old, maybe you're watching YouTube to learn how to ride a bike. Exactly like that. So the AI model has to watch these videos, right? And then it has to try it. And then as it tries it, it's like, maybe I should correct myself here and there. Yeah. That's how I would explain it.
That's awesome. You spoke about at the end about data, saying, watching YouTube videos is a way of getting data. The robot needs to learn from doing multiple tasks. That's data. Our very, very blunt question, are essentially pilots your data engines, or for any embodied AI company, robots in buildings generating data, which, trains the next model. And then is that a flywheel, or is that, or is that not really the way it is?
It is a flywheel. Well, I think that's the idea, right? Like, right now, I think a lot of the labs, you're training robots or you're training AI with like lab data, right? But once you send a robot out into production, right, you have real life data that it's very messy, it's very chaotic, it's different from the distribution in the lab.
Yeah.
So this is what we call a distribution shift, right, from the lab to real life.
Yeah.
And we need more deployment data, which is why also what we are focusing on deployment. Actually, internally, we call it deployment intelligence. So everybody's working on AGI, AI, whatever, right? Sure. Yeah. Right? It's another buzzword, but let me introduce a new buzzword. I hope I get to coin it. It's called deployment intelligence. What that means is that there are a lot of behaviors that we want in production that might not be focused on the AI training process, right? Things like how does the robot operate like out of the box? How does the robot learn to do things out of the box, right? And that is what I call deployment intelligence, including that loop, that feedback loop. When you're deployed, a robot's in production, right? And then it makes a mistake and then it corrects itself. That is part of what I call deployment intelligence. It needs to be able to understand and learn in real life, not just in the lab, not just under supervision, right? If I go back to my analogy of the child learning to ride a bike, right? You can think of like this as the child riding the bike under parental supervision, right? That's kind of like what everybody's doing now. At some point, the child is going to be like, hey, mom, hey, dad, can I take the bike out to the park right now and go for a ride? And that child is going to wear a helmet. He's going to ride in the park and then he's going to fall. He's going to make a mistake. But it's very important that that child learns how to get up from that fall and continue riding, right? So you can think about it as like that sort of like thing that we try to achieve, right? Right now, everybody's at the sort of pre-training, like lab, like supervised kind of setup. At some point, we need to start thinking about like when we deploy, right? How do we have that learning cycle there as well?
So deployment intelligence, your term. So
deployment intelligence, yes.
Yeah.
You heard it here first.
Yeah, I heard it here
We
first.
will market it.
Yeah.
So-
On Wikipedia, it'll be like deployment intelligence, Raphael Yee, RoboCred.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That brings me actually very seamless to my next question. You were talking about how robots have to learn from being deployed in real world. What is something that you can't cheat with a simulation, rather than reality itself?
Yeah, I mean, reality is so rich, right? It's hard to discretize time and space and physics, right? It's incredibly rich, and we just don't have the sensors. We don't have the way. We don't have a way to very efficiently record and process such richness in information. So, by definition, a simulation has to be a lower fidelity model of the world, right?
Yes.
Now, I'm going to say by definition because maybe at some point we have new data structures, we have new modalities of simulating, right? That will close the gap between results in the real world and in the virtual world. But by definition, if you're calling it a simulation, it has to be of a lower fidelity. And because it's at a lower fidelity than in real life, it might also mean that the outcomes and the outputs in simulation is just not as real as in real life, right?
Absolutely.
The way a ball like falls in the real world is the ideal state because that's where we live, right? But in simulation, if your physics your physics solver is limited, right? Like maybe certain like wind dynamics or air dynamics or whatever is not taken into account, and then the ball just falls in a slightly different pattern. So the
real world is very rich.
The real world is super rich, super rich, and we are going down one level to put it into simulation. Yeah.
Does it work? Does it?
Yeah, I mean, it works to some extent. I think a year ago, I would say, okay, the sim to real gap is a real issue. And that gap wasn't closed a year ago. Now, I think everybody is kind of working towards it because they know that real life data and real life sort of learning is capped. It's limited.
Do you think there's any scope here, for sim to real currently for people to build in?
Of course.
To make it
like so much scope. The question is, what are you working on, right? So you see companies like World Labs, they're working on very rich world models.
Yeah.
Okay. And the world models I'm talking about are those that generate a synthetic environment. Okay. You see people like Ian LeCun, who's working on world models, but a different kind of world model, right? It's a bit of conflation, but his world models are kind of internal to the model, right? Which are like in the latent space. And it's a bit different. It's a different flavor, but kind of in a similar idea, right? Like, and then you have people like companies like Lightwheel, who is working on like simulation environments, right? Like robo evaluations. You have other companies and a ton of other companies also working on like synthetic environments and simulations and all that kind of thing. The question is, what is the right like point of this entire value chain to be in? Like, which is the right place? When are you in that place, and what will give you traction?
Yeah.
Like, what will deliver value? And the real answer is that nobody knows. Like, as a frontier lab, right? Your physical intelligence today, and you're thinking about like how do I use simulations, right? You're probably thinking like, okay, I want to validate, I want to roll out, that kind of thing, And then you're also thinking about like, how do I train in simulation? For us at Griffin Labs, we're also thinking about the same thing, right?
Absolutely.
But because you're at the frontier, you have this fog of war in front of you, right? Like, it's all foggy and you don't know where to go. And all best you can do is lean on your own intuition as to like, okay, maybe I need to make a bit, like turn to the right a bit, turn to the left and explore this and think about that. I think when everything's unclear outside, you have to think inside internally, and you have to have a very clear picture in your head of like where to go. And I think that's a very long-winded answer, but same for simulation, right? Like in the simulation space, the scope is huge. Frankly speaking, nobody knows what they're doing. Everybody's trying a lot of things. Where do you fit in this slice? I don't know.
So do you think that everyone still doesn't know much about the space you're in right now? Is everyone just trying their luck at it?
Well, I mean, we are in a bubble, right? Like we are in engineering, we're in AI, robotics. I mean, when I say we, I mean like three of us, right?
Yeah.
And we feel like everybody else knows everything. But the truth is that like the vast majority of people out there don't even know what embodied AI is. They know what ChatGPT is. They know what Anthropic is, but do they know what embodied AI is? Do they know how robots operate? I don't think so. And maybe the flip side of that question is, do you need them to know? Maybe not really. It's just, and to go back to the question of knowing, right? Like as a frontier researcher, I think you have to be able to accept that you don't know things. If you don't like accept that, if you don't think you don't know, maybe you're not that great of a researcher, right? Because you have to be working on the frontier, right? And if you're working on the frontier, by definition, so you're in fog of war. And yeah, exactly. So you're supposed to not know, but then kind of know how to get to a point of knowing,
Better than the others around you at least, because it's your field.
Yeah.
Amazing. So, there's a bunch of problems that hide around facility management, right? Let's say moving around obstacles without hitting things, doing a task. And there's various tasks that robots have to do today. Going and opening a door, gripping, wiping. We've heard, me and Pranav, we were in China and we were speaking with a lot of robotic companies and we learned that, gripping is a really difficult thing. Right now, for you guys, what is the most difficult task for a robot to do and why?
Yeah, I'd say the most difficult thing is being able to be consistent. So in terms of like picking things up, manipulating, moving, like I would say the difficulty is in getting those behaviors to be consistent. And consistency is what you need for deployment. You need reliability. Like customers pay you because you hit their SLAs, not, and not they judge you based on your performance, right? So if the robot can pick up 1 time, 2 time, not impressive. If they fail like
consistently, if it's able to pick up.
If they consistently fail, then it's useless, right?
Yeah, it cannot be trusted.
Exactly, it cannot be trusted. It cannot do the work, So I think when it comes to like, and I'm not saying when it comes to making up for labor shortfall, right? You're essentially trying to replicate a human's job. Why are humans hired? It's because of trust. Because you trust that a human can do something. That's the whole point, right? So for a robot to earn that trust, I think that's the hardest problem right now.
Amazing. And before we close off in this segment, of teaching people, trying to get an understanding of what's out there, SLAM, VLAs, etc. What is an area for, robotic engineers like us that you would kind of say is the right place to start? At least for, let's just say, robotic engineers who want to be, who are coming into this space, let's just say even in EPD students in SUTD don't really have much knowledge on robotics, on embodied AI, on physical AI. What is let me put it in the simplest way. What is the best starting point, with what, be it courses, etc. on, ROS or whatever, to get into the space of embodied AI? And, is there a right time to get into it? Or is it just, anytime, it doesn't matter?
It's a great question. I think you should, if you're interested in something, you should always just do it. Like, learning only compounds after you start doing it. Like, there's only so much you can do, like, at the desk reading, So I think, and these days I think it's very accessible. You could like 3D print like a small arm, and then you could like train it to, you can run a VLA model. The robot has very good libraries for that. Like it's really good libraries for that. And you can start from there, right? I would say like, in the past, I would say like, you're a fresh grad, maybe you should just take the plunge, jump into a company and do it. These days, I don't really have that same romantic view anymore. I realize that like, if you really think about what's competitive, like so many people are leaving school and deciding to start a company from scratch. It's it's what I did. It's a noble pursuit. But have you accumulated any competitive advantage over other people? Not really. Sometimes you just gotta maybe get a job, go in there, understand it really quickly, and then decide there's an opportunity. And because of the fact that you were in a company, you know something that all these fresh grads don't, and you end up like getting into a huge advantage, right, in that race. Okay. That's it. I don't think I would have listened to myself anyway. I think if I go back 2 years, like, and I time travel, and I told myself, hey, mate, like, go and like join a company and look at what they're doing, and then find an opportunity and start a company, right? I wouldn't have listened. So,
do you give that advice to people right now?
Yeah, the advice, I would give that advice, yes. But I think the best founders sometimes also don't take that advice, right? They learn from their own instinct and intuition. So that's fully expected.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Pranav, take it away with the next segment.
So I will take on the next segment, which is the machine, like you're building the body and the brain, both. So a lot of AI robotic companies just go software only, just build the brain, run it on someone else's hardware. Why are you building both?
Okay. I think this is a nuanced question. Okay. So I think that it makes a lot of sense for a company to work on just the brain. Okay. I do. And the reason is because when you take on hardware, your margins are suddenly like way lower than if you were just a pure play software startup, right? Now, I think that is very obvious. That benefit is obvious, and people quite often make that trade-off.
Mm-hmm.
If people specialize in building hardware and you take their hardware, maybe their hardware is better than you could build it yourself. The reason why we do what we call full stack robotics, what I call full stack, right, which is that we take it all the way from the actuators, the actual hardware, all the way up to the brain, is because one, we can do that. We have the power of LionsBot as an incumbent, right, behind us, meaning that we have access to economies of scale, access to manufacturing expertise, which we can do that no other company can do. Okay, so
Absolutely.
that I must first admit, right? That is my advantage and that's my strength.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing is, you realize that when you have the hardware and you're building the hardware, you gain knowledge that no one else who's doing pure play software will have.
Mm-hmm.
You start to understand the machine from a very fundamental level in a way that other people just can't because of the fact that they don't have experience with the hardware.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes to reliability and consistent delivery of performance, that is huge, right? Because imagine today, like you're a pure play AI startup and you want to go out there, you want to deploy robots for specific tasks.
Mm-hmm.
Now, your customer tells you, hey, this thing broke and it's not working. You're going to have to tell them, give me 1 or 2 weeks. I need to swap out the machine or send it back to China and get China to fix it, come back. And then I'll push it out to you. That ain't going to fly. Not only that, like if you don't build the robot yourself and you use other people's robots, right? If the robot breaks and then your Chinese supplier or your manufacturer tells you, hey, we've discontinued this model, you have to take this other model, then you're going to have to deal with that. You're going to have to deal with the fact that you now have a fundamentally different product that you might not have accounted for. Maybe your cost margins change and you will always be sort of pulled on both ends, right? You don't have proper like control over your actual product. So can you really say that it is your product and you can deliver the experience? I don't know. So I think that's my perspective on things.
Okay. Yeah, it's great. So like I have a question, like making one robot is already hard. Now you have to make 10, make them working in a fleet in a place and there's nobody to babysit them. So what breaks and when you go from one to a fleet and how do you deal with it?
A lot of things break. Don't even talk about 10 robots. I think a lot of things break in like one robot. Yeah. But I think interoperability within robots haven't really been like solved to the degree that I think it should be at. I think it's kind of like, it's not foreign anymore. Like, people know how to do traffic control. In robotics, we have like, very amazing like open source frameworks like OpenRMF, which is a robot middleware framework developed actually proudly in Singapore or with huge government Singapore support. So shout out to OpenRMF. But I think that orchestration piece is still very heuristics driven. It's still not agentic. It's still not like properly intelligent. And maybe, you still have that sense that there will still be issues at the edge. So what breaks? I don't know. Like a lot of things are relatively solved now. Like for example, queuing, like if say 2 robots need to use a particular resource or space, you can queue them. And then when it's their turn, you could get them to move into the space, right? A lot of warehousing logistics are kind of automated in that manner. So I would say those are relatively solved. But when it comes to dynamic situations, for example, let's say there's a spill, right? And then you send a robot to clean up that mess. But maybe something is wrong with the robot, that robot is broken, right? Can it call another robot to take over? Which is what a human would do, right? Like if you're on the way to a job and then you realize, oh, like you're bleeding out or something. Right? If you start spontaneously like bleeding and you're like, oh shit, I can't do it. Like, let me call my friend to help me. Right? That's what a human would do. But for robots, that really isn't a case yet. No one has really built anything robust enough to handle those edge cases. So I would say when you start to move it to like from 1 to like 10 robots that need to work together. Yeah, okay. So we don't have that yet. But even in software, like software agents, right? Like agentic AI, like you're still figuring out how to make them work together, Yeah.
Okay. So we can move to our next segment.
Yeah, this actually, kind of perfectly aligns with the question that I had, which is, what is a line of autonomy that you won't cross until, you're really certain, which means, when a human does have to take over a certain task?
What is a line of autonomy that you wouldn't cross? That's a great question. I think it's hard to answer that question without addressing what the task is, right? And the SLAs around it, right? I would, from a business perspective, you want to cross all those lines because that means that you have some technological advantage, right?
Okay.
I would say we are really limited to what the technology allows us to do. So a year ago, like VLAs were short horizon, so they could only work in discrete chunks. Nowadays you have like memory, you have long long horizon, and so we've crossed that line, right? And then you can say, okay, this opens up space for like new tasks, like longer tasks. I would say maybe one of the more dangerous ones are the human interactions. Yeah. So robots interacting with objects. Okay, sure. I think that is okay. But when you have to interact with humans, then let's say you have a robot that wants to like walk up to humans and like shake their hand, give them a hug, that sort of thing. I feel like the technology currently isn't ready for that yet. In terms of safety, because you have these like very powerful motors, and if at any point the AI glitches and just decides to like smack a child, like that child is gonna have all his bones broken. Like it's gonna be terrible.
This actually happened in China when there was the unitary.
And he kicked the
child.
That's
insane. No,
it's insane.
This is. I'm sorry if I'm butting into your answer, but
no.
Popped up in my head, right? Like in a conversation manner. Is there a world where these robots can actually be extremely safe, where you let a robot go handle a human, a kid, a child, whatever it is?
Yeah, no, of course. Everybody wants that, right?
Is it possible?
If today, is it possible? Well, right now, no, I don't think so. Yeah, right now, I think anybody who's telling you that, okay, it's possible, but is it? Yeah, exactly. Okay. I don't think so, right? So, I think everybody knows that it's like robots are not, like humanoid robots are not safe right now in terms of like operation. Because, you only have, for example, you have a front-facing camera, but you don't have a camera on the back. You cannot see some blind spots. We're working towards solutions for sure. I mean, even at Griffin Labs, right? Because we're thinking about deploying, we have to think about safety. Safety is a number one priority for us. And we are thinking about safety and we are developing. We have an idea for how to do it and we are working on it. But until we get to that point, I would say, human interaction is probably that sort of, like, no one really wants to do human interaction at this point.
What are you guys going to deploy? Like what? I know you guys are, what exactly are you all working on to deploy?
Yeah, what we're working on, right? So we're working on a couple of robots. We have a robot that is for toilet cleaning. We showed a prototype a couple months back.
At the conference, right? What was it?
Yeah, in Amsterdam, Interclean.
Interclean.
Interclean in Amsterdam is basically the CES of cleaning, right? It's the biggest show in the world for the cleaning industry, and then we showed a very, very early prototype of what a robot with arms could do in a toilet. But we're actually working on a more compact toilet cleaning robot, and that we'll reveal in a couple of months.
Ooh, okay.
So you heard it here first. We're also working on embodied AI applications, like a semi-humanoid. So with wheels, but with arms and a lift and a head. Yeah, so those are really the main robots that we're working on. Of course, we're working on other projects as well. So like software projects, AI projects, those are separate products. But this will be the main two, like hardware. So
based on your experience in LionsBot and potentially even getting into deployment soon, as you mentioned, what does, deployment look like? You can show up at an actual building with an actual robot. I mean, how does it work for you guys? Or do you just, what happens in the first hour?
Yeah, it's a huge process.
Yeah.
So I don't think deployment is just about like unboxing. Deployment starts really at the sales stage as well. So it means taking a call with potential customers, assessing whether or not we can support the features that they want. So for example, if a customer says, hey, can the robot go from like level 1 to level 2? Then we have to ask the question of, do you have a lift system that allows us to call an API? And if the answer is no, then we can't. And then the customer decides whether or not they want to continue, right? So deployment is not like, I send you a box, you open the box and you run the robot.
Have a
we want it to be like that, right? We are actually we're building our new robot to be like that.
Oh wow.
Okay. We're working on that. But deployment really starts at an earlier point, right? And so and then you understand, okay, so this is what the space is like, this is what we need, this is what it can do, right? This is what it must do, and then we plan for it, right? And then you go down to the site, maybe they've signed the contract, they've bought the robot, right? You go down to the site and right now you do kind of a lot of like manual work also. Like you have to move the robot around for it to like map. Understand the area. You record the map and then you record level 2, you record level 3, and then you press start and then it goes. And then you spend like a week or two kind of like monitoring the robot, seeing whether or not there's any edge cases. If there's an edge case, you have to solve it, that kind of thing, right? And you can imagine that is hard to scale. For LionsBot to have done this, for over 6,000 robots worldwide, like we know that the deployment challenge is really hard because we've done the deployments ourselves, which is why we are now working towards a sort of like humanless deployed situation. Like Griffin Labs is working on technology that will allow these robots to enter a site and self-explore. Okay.
Wow.
Allow them to self-map, allow them to self-correct, to close the learning loop in the deployment space and the deployment phase. And all those go into what we think a finished product would be for robots in the future, which is that you could say, hi, I want this task done, right? I'm going to get a Griffin Labs or LionsBot robot, and this robot will be able to do all these things that previously I would need a deployment engineer to do on site in some random part of Germany. You know, yeah.
That's amazing. So it's very messy at the moment.
It is very messy. So it's hard to tell you, like, you ask me, like, what does the first hour look like? It depends on the space, you know? But you would have to like map the environment. You push the robot around. It has to like the lidars are running, the lidars are spinning, the cameras are up. You're mapping, you know, that kind of thing. And then you run the thing and you see whether it does it properly. If it needs to be adjusted, you adjust. You adjust the boundaries. You say, don't go through this door, don't go through this entrance, don't do that. The ideal future is that you don't have to do that. You press the start button, the robot goes around and like understands the space. He looks and says, oh, I shouldn't go into that space. Oh, I can't go there. This space is okay. Or ask the user, hey, can I go into this space? Like,
yeah.
You know?
That's amazing. I mean, if that's actually possible, I think it changes the way of a lot of things, right? Just being able to, you know, for me, let's say I take a Griffin Labs solid cleaning robot, I put it in my house and I'm like, okay, figure it out. And it just realizes because every bathroom is different.
Yeah.
But that's an amazing possibility.
Yeah.
What's, I don't know, this is quite an interesting question actually that I had in my head. What's a number that you as the director of Griffin Labs, you know, watch very obsessively, not for the investors, but for you that tells you that something's genuinely working? You know what I mean?
What's a number?
I mean,
Autometric.
Autometric. It does not have to be a number. It could be, what is something that you watch obsessively that tells you something is working?
Okay. When you say something, you mean like across the entire company or like specific parts?
Entire
'Cause I
company.
think entire company. I think that's hard. It's really hard.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's very romantic to want to
Mhm.
reduce all of this into one number. When in reality, in robotics, you are looking at very, very, very different domains and merging them together. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
If you ask me, then all I can say is when we run our trials, I want to make sure that 9 out of 10 times by trial definitions, right? So you have success metrics and failure metrics, right? 9 out of 10 times that the robot will work. Right? That's the easy answer. The real answer is it goes down to the parts. 9 out of 10 times my actuator has to do this. 9 out of 10 times my arm has to reach this same exact angle, so I know it's consistent. 9 out of 10 times my robot needs to enter and exit the door, right, to know that it's successful. That's the truth. The truth is I cannot give you a single number, because even if I give you a single number, it's the amalgamation of all these very, very small numbers that stretch full stack, that goes all the way from hardware, from the smallest motor, right, being able to, you know, like accurately replicate that angle and that speed and velocity, all the way to how many times out of 10 does the AI think that this is clean or not clean, that this is up to my standard or not up to my standard, right? So it's a whole list of like reliability that goes in that gives you that final like 9 out of 10 times it succeeds the trials.
Okay. Makes sense. I think the question framed as a number wasn't really the right way, but that's kind of what we were, you know, wanted to hear from you. So Pranav, maybe you can go ahead with the last segment, the long game.
Yep. So I will go through the last segment. So I want to take your honest version. If Griffin Labs really work out, which I really want, and all people who are looking at this, what does a building run by our robots look like in 5 years, and how far is that from where you're actually today?
Yeah, I think you should see different robots from different companies, not just LionsBot, right? Different robots from different companies roaming in public spaces, in buildings, doing things in the background, invisibly, but perhaps doing things that humans don't want to do. So like cleaning, like, you know, showing you directions, like inspecting, doing security in the background. And it should be in the background. It should be invisible. Why? Because if it were very visible, right, it probably means that something goes wrong, and then, you know, you're like, oh, it's not working, right? So it should be able to run in the background, kind of seamlessly. The building should be able to manage and have a say in how these robots are deployed, right? So one very important part is that buildings need to be able to orchestrate these fleets, and these robots need to be able to move around the building in a smooth manner, right?
Yeah.
Alongside humans.
Yeah.
So that, to me, is what the ideal sort of situation would be like. We should be able to relieve pressure off of our very elderly workforce in the cleaning industry, Okay. So cleaning is a very physical, very, very, very physical business. You think you go to a gym and you squat, like, and you deadlift, right? Like, these are like old people doing that every single day, cleaning every single toilet bowl that people use in a mall. Think about it, right? And you're like 70, 80 years old, your knees are weak, right? If robots could do a better job at these kind of tasks, it means for our elderly workforce, it relieves pressure. Maybe they move into a position where they are managing the robots, they are looking at the robots, instead of having to do that sort of physical, have that physical toll on their body, right? So that's the idea for me in 5 years. And I believe that Griffin Labs will play a very pivotal, important role in making that happen. We are the company making it happen right now. And we are the only ones right now in Singapore thinking about it, making it work, and actually moving towards that target.
That's great. It's amazing to hear.
Amazing. So, we have all seen robotics is a great body of companies with incredible demos that died. But, that's history. What actually kills most robotic startups? And what are you doing so Griffin isn't one of them?
Die because you have no money, right? You die because you run out of money, right? So I think raising money is one part of the battle, right? So you need to raise money. Okay, so you need capital. Well, the next thing is you need a robot that works and that can sell. So everything that we do is focused on deployment. Like I said, deployment intelligence. Griffin Labs is working on deployment intelligence. If there's one thing that we take away from this whole thing, Griffin Labs is working on deployment intelligence, right? Because I know that if we don't deploy, we're not going to have money. If we don't have money, you die, right? And that's just the pragmatic thing about business, which is why it goes back to the start of this conversation, right? We're talking about like revenue, making money, how does that feel, like why, right? It's because the lifeblood of any company is revenue. And if you don't have that money coming in, right, you're going to die. So you're right to say that the space, like robotic space, is littered with like a lot of dead bodies, right? Robotics companies who sadly could not make it work. But that's the challenge of working at the frontier. That's the challenge of being bold enough to be at the frontier. So to all the companies who have like quote unquote failed or died, right? Kudos to them anyway, because they tried. We are also trying really hard, right, to make sure that we don't fail, that we succeed. And that success means deploying robots, selling robots, putting robots in production.
Amazing.
Okay, great. So I have an interesting question right now. Like, what's something you believe about robots or in general about this business? When you started, you have since decided this is just wrong. Like, was just wrong. Your decision was wrong or your belief was wrong.
When I started, I thought robotics would be easy. That belief is
Quite
so
the
wrong.
opposite.
Quite the opposite, yes.
Quite the opposite.
I came from software, right? You can't come from software, you come from AI. You're like, oh yeah, dude, this is you just code and then you deploy.
Absolutely not. Right?
I was so wrong. I was so wrong. Yeah, you don't have that CI/CD. You don't have that auto deploy, like auto scale. You don't have all that in robots because every single robot needs somebody to build it. Needs someone to put it together.
Yeah.
Every single robot needs a machine to build the parts. Every single robot needs, and you're putting things into the real world. Like I said, you're at a level of fidelity that is so high, that is so rich, right? Things could go wrong. Yeah. So that core belief of robotics being easy is wrong.
Is absolutely wrong, right? So this takes us to the last part of the podcast, which is something interesting that we do here in RoboTalk, which is rapid fire. So we just throw out questions and then we just, me and Pranav will just go through out opposite questions we have in our head and then, we just get a rapid answer. But the first one, which I actually noted down, which I wanted to ask you, I wouldn't really keep it as a rapid fire question because I wanted a proper answer from it, which is, do you believe that humanoids are the future, or do you just think it's a very big distraction in robotics right now? Because a lot of companies, you have Unity showing their robots flipping, you have, some robots doing dancing. What can humanoids actually do realistically right now?
Okay, so very long question, by the way. Humanoids, what can they do realistically? Backflips. They can dance. Okay. Are humanoids the future? I would rephrase that as humanoids are in the future. We need to get to that point. Why humanoids? Well, the world is built around humans. If you can solve the battery issue, you can solve like power issues and that kind of thing, safety issues, straightforward solution. Are humanoids the solution? No. The solution is whatever works. And right now, humanoids don't quite work. And there are a lot of other robotic form factors that do work. That would be my short answer.
So in the sense where, even my head was like, why do I need a humanoid robot to walk on its two legs for you to train that when I can just have an AMR base which just rolls around in a wheel?
Yeah, the AMR base cannot climb stairs. They can't climb stairs. So I can, that's the most obvious case, right? Like, so humanoids solve some problems. They don't solve all the problems. I mean,
yeah.
You know what I mean? So the other problem is data. right? If I use a humanoid form factor, I could get data from any human body. Anybody doing things is a data provider for me. So
Yeah.
if you think about it from a data shortage perspective, humanoids make a lot of sense.
Mhm.
In terms of data translation.
Yeah.
Now, does it mean that humanoids are the solution? No. And in fact, I disagree with that framing at all. Like, it's not about one robot form factor being the solution to something. It's about what problems there are, what solutions could exist, and what robots could fit those solutions. And if you say, hey, I've got a factory floor that is like single level, I don't need 2 floors. Or you say, hey, I have a facility with a lift, and the lift can be called via API, or you can press the lift buttons, right?
Yeah.
Then a wheeled robot
Deploy
works.
anywhere. Yeah. Absolutely. Great.
Okay, so the next question. What's the most overrated or buzzword in AI today?
Humanoids, for sure, right?
Okay.
Like, yeah.
What do you think is the final boss in facility tasks? The single hardest thing in the physical thing to build, to automate?
Manipulation. Consistent
Yeah?
manipulation. Yeah.
Which is manipulation? Okay.
A robot, real or fictional, that made you want to do this?
Great question.
Amazing question.
BB-8.
BB-8? Okay, fair
BB-8.
enough. One thing about running a company that nobody really warned you about.
How hard it is to align people. How hard it is to align the team, especially as it grows.
Okay, so best money Griffin ever spent and the worst money Griffin ever spent.
Wow. I think the best money that Griffin's ever spent is hiring my amazing, talented engineers.
Okay.
Amazing, talented engineers.
Shout out to them.
Shout out to my engineers. Shout out to my amazing interns. I think we've had honestly, we've had very good experience with all our interns. They're incredible people, and I want them to come back to Griffin Labs.
Yeah.
Best money, yeah, talent. Worst money we've spent buying unreliable robotic arms.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, let's finish the sentence, right? Most robots fail because their builders forget that.
Most robots fail because their builders forget that they should test a lot.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay,
and test
so
all the time.
Yeah.
Like always
Test
test
it all the time? Yeah, fair enough.
Okay, so 10 years out, Griffin Labs is a dash.
10 years out, Griffin Labs is a multi-billion, trillion-dollar company in embodied AI. Like, we've bought all the embodied AI companies in the world. We are going to space. We're going to put robots on Mars. Shout out to Elon. Please notice me. Yeah. No, but I mean, serious answer. I think 10 years out, Griffin Labs will be the embodied AI company in Southeast Asia. We are the company to go to, just like OpenAI in AI, right? And we are solving real problems in the deployment space. We are the market leader in deploying intelligence.
That's amazing, and I really, really see that Griffin Lab will get there.
Yeah,
I really hope also. So to end off, where should people go and find out Griffin Labs? If you guys are, trying to reach out to people, engineers, investors, whatever it is.
I mean, you can find us at griffinlabs.ai.
Yeah.
Jobs are posted there.
Yeah.
You can find us on LinkedIn, Griffin Labs, or maybe you can find me on LinkedIn as well. We are hiring. We are always hiring for a good talent. We hire all year round. Whether you're in mechanical, AI, autonomy, you're an intern, we're welcome. We want to have you. And if you are a builder, and if you're thinking of doing something in the space, or if you're thinking of working with deployment intelligence or robotics, please reach out. Yeah,
absolutely. So we'll put all your details in the description. But thank you so much for coming here.
Thank you.
Anything else you want to add?
Anything else I want to add? Robotics is not humanoids.
I think that should be the main. Yeah, robotics is not humanoids.
It's much more than humanoids. Yeah.
But really, really appreciate your time.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Yeah. Thanks, guys. Thank you.
No worries.